I'm submitting this story on behalf of a friend of mine who experienced this terrifying and traumatic event. I will relay the story from his perspective. To provide some background, I'm a 21-year-old guy living in what I call medical housing. Basically, in this small village, you're either an elderly person or have severe health problems like I do, but can still be somewhat self-sufficient. Each resident has their own cottage, 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms. Mine was the former. The incident took place 2 weeks ago. While I was at social hour with a few of my fellow residents, they mentioned hearing some strange knocks on their doors and windows at night. One resident even claimed that someone tried to twist their doorknob. Luckily, she had the door locked. Since we weren't too far from another neighborhood, everyone assumed a couple of kids were causing trouble. Our village didn't exactly have or need much security, or so we thought. Fast forward a few days later. I had my regular physical therapy and must have forgotten to lock one of my doors. Even during the pandemic, we're a tight-knit community, so if a stranger tried to sneak in, someone would notice. When I got home, I was exhausted and I took a long nap. I woke up to my neighbor from across the street, Vicky, entering the cottage to help me set up my feeding machine and breathing apparatus for the night. She's a sweet, motherly woman who used to be a nurse. During her visit, she went over to the furnace to turn it on, but didn't twist the dial much. "That's strange. Your heat's not working. It's going to be cold tonight, and you need to stay warm. Why don't you come stay with me until maintenance fixes your furnace tomorrow morning?" I was still quite groggy from my nap, so I didn't think twice about what she said, until I saw the look on her face. We both have a background in theater, so I could tell when she was acting. Despite being nervous and puzzled, I just went along with it. All of my necessary medical supplies and equipment were gathered and ready to be packed up. Vicky worked quickly to help me and supported me as I walked to the front door. She seemed to be walking a little too fast, but I was too tired to say anything. While we were doing that, I heard a strange noise from my walk-in closet. I didn't think much of it and figured it was my cat using his litter box or playing with his toy. When we entered her cottage, her husband Frank set up the extra bed, and that's when she revealed the truth to me. While Vicky was grabbing an IV from the cabinet next to the closet, she caught a glimpse of something. There was a dark figure crouching in the closet. She didn't want to startle me as I could have stopped breathing because of my condition. I felt nauseous. For all I knew, that person could have been there the entire time I was at physical therapy, or during my nap. Vicky, realizing that I was disturbed, hugged me and said, "Don't be scared. Frank and I will be in the bedroom. If anything happens, call out. Frank's got a gun, and we won't let anything happen to you." I was too exhausted and disoriented to inquire about someone calling the police. I just assumed she would take care of that. But the story does not end there. Later, I woke up to the sound of tapping on the bedroom window. Lo and behold, there was a man standing there. I'm not sure how tall he was, but I'd say he probably was around 6 feet if I had to guess. "I see you in there. I'm coming in, one way or another." I was hooked into the treatment machines, immobile, helpless, and absolutely terrified. Immediately, I was yelling for Vicky and Frank. "Get your gun now!" I heard Vicky yell. Frank was a retired police officer and can still be pretty intimidating. As they rushed in, Frank pointed his gun at the window where the man was still lurking. "Get off my property or I'll blow your brains out, you nutcase!" he yelled. Vicky helped me get up, and we both entered the master bedroom, where she locked the door behind her and pulled me into the walk-in closet. At this point, even while hooked to the oxygen supply, my breathing became irregular. Fortunately, Vicky was able to console me and regulate my breathing before I passed out. A few minutes later, Frank knocked on the bedroom door. After Vicky let him in, she called the police. The guy wasn't just tapping on the window now, he was practically banging it down. Vicky immediately called the cops. Since they frequently passed by our village, it didn't take long for them to get there. When the police arrived, they found cracks on the spare bedroom window where the intruder had been pounding on it. However, the man had disappeared by the time they got there. I was terribly shaken up and still having trouble breathing. There was no way I would be sleeping in that spare bedroom now. That night, Vicky stayed with me in the master bedroom, providing comfort and assurance until I fell asleep. The police contacted the medical housing staff the following day regarding what happened. Since then, security guards have been hired around the clock. They are also working on enough money to build a gate and essentially turn this establishment into a gated community. A few days after the incident, Frank installed security cameras and alarms in my cottage and in his. This is an unexplained event that my dogs and I have experienced multiple times. For some context, I live in a very isolated part of the Midwest, meaning that not a lot happens around here besides farming or the occasional small-town drama. To my knowledge, there have been no killings, witchcraft, or anything to provoke a strange event. Following this experience, I have researched for years, and I still have not come up with an explanation. So here it goes. A few years ago, my dog and I were in our back garden. I was picking some cucumbers and pulling weeds. We live by a forest that I usually love to go hike in whenever the weather permits me. As we were leaving the garden, I heard a strange sound coming from within the woods. It sounded like an animal at first, but as I got closer, I realized that my dog was extremely on edge, ears perked up, showing her fangs. She has never done this before and has always been an extremely passive dog. As we walked closer to the forest, we heard what sounded like heavy, labored breathing. It was exaggerated, like someone was trying to pull a prank on me. I walked down the path for about 20 feet into the woods, and the noise surrounded me. There is no distinguishable point of origin, not above, nor to my left or right. It was as if this raspy, exaggerated breathing was inside my head. My dog had her tail tucked between her legs and was looking extremely nervous, so we booked it out of there. As we left, I could still hear the breathing until we got back inside. The rest of that night was uneventful. Fast forward to almost a year ago. My dog from the previous incident had passed away, and I currently own a new dog. I had completely forgotten about the incident, until the day that I was metal detecting around our property for some screws I dropped. As we made our way through the trees, my dog stopped and looked in the exact same spot that my other dog did a few years back. It was daylight, so we would have easily seen any large animals. Out of pure curiosity, I ended up metal detecting around the area to see if anything was there. What I found was confusing. There were these strange pieces of iron buried next to each other about a half-foot into the soil. Next to them, I found 3 of my small model paint jars that I had thrown out the previous week. This was alarming, given that we do not have any raccoon problems around here, and we have security cameras on our property, meaning that if someone was digging around in our bin, we would have been immediately notified. I remember bagging the paint jars before, so there's no way they would have slipped out of the waste bin and ended up all the way out here. This made me feel as if I was being targeted by something. I still have no answers, but something tells me that the heavy breathing I heard outside of my house a few years back is connected somehow. So, what do you think? I would describe myself as a loner during my high school years. I would often play video games, keep to myself, and not socialize with anyone outside of a few friends. One day, my friend, who I'll call Charlie, told me that he was having a sleepover at his house on Friday, and I agreed to join. When Friday came, my parents drove me to his house. Charlie and I headed straight to his basement and played some Call of Duty until around 11, when his mom told us it was time for bed. I woke up at around 2 a.m. to hear a thud above me, as if someone was stomping on the floor above us. I tried to wake up Charlie, but his subconscious told me to fuck off. I tried to go back to sleep, but I heard another loud thud above me about a half hour later, followed by heavy footsteps. I heard the basement door slowly creak open. I decided to hide in the closet, behind some coat hangers. After a while of waiting, I ended up dozing off. I would say I woke up around an hour later, to the sound of heavy breathing. I looked up, and what I saw next sent chills rushing down my body. Through the slits in the closet door, a pair of eyes were peering in at me. My stomach felt as if it was about to explode. I covered my mouth with both hands to stop myself from screaming. I went further back into the closet and hid in the darkness, and stayed there until the morning. I didn't mention anything to Charlie or his mother about what I saw. To this day, I don't know who or what came down into the basement and just stared at me through the closet door. It gives me the creeps just thinking about it. After that night, I stopped going to Charlie's house. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into this episode of Based on True Events. If you enjoyed these narrations and would like your story to be featured in this series, please send in your written experience to unit522stories@outlook.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, I'm your Uncle Unit, and as always, never forget. There's always a reason to be afraid.